Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to episode number 1 of the Utah Jazz MyLeague series. Now you might be wondering, why the Jazz? Why are we doing the Utah Jazz? And the answer is really simple. This is a team that has never won an NBA championship, ever. They've never won one. And aside from that, I think another interesting aspect is the fact that we're a small market team, which means we're not really going to be able to draw in big name free agents on most occasions anyway. And that also means that we'll have to focus on scouting, drafting, training up our players, and hoping that some of them pan out and just kind of go from there. Now, before we jump into the roster, I just want to explain a couple things about this series and what you can kind of expect. Number one, we will be starting off on Hall of Fame mode. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not that good at the game. But I want a challenge, and this is the highest challenge that there is. So we're going to be starting off right off the bat on Hall of Fame. So we might have some ugly games, especially early on. I have not really played 2K21 that much yet. So I'm hoping it's not going to be too disastrous at least in the early weeks of this franchise. Another thing, we're actually going to be playing every single match. That's right, every single match is going to be played. And to kind of keep the video from being too long, I've decided that I'm just going to kind of edit and show you the highlights of each match. And then at the end of each match, we will look at the box score and I can kind of give you my thoughts on how everyone played and maybe kind of a plan of attack for the next game. So let's go ahead and delve into this roster. We're going to be starting off with the point guards. And first up is Mike Conley. I'm going to be honest, guys. I actually really like Mike Conley. I wish that his inside scoring was a little better, but I seem to miss a lot of contested layups with him. So I wish that was a little better, but overall, I think he's a solid point guard, especially for where we're at. In our franchise, he's solid. He's as solid as we're gonna do. Now, obviously, he's got a huge contract, $34 million, but that's just for this season. And then we'll have that money to play with in the off season. So I'm pretty excited about that. And who knows? I know he's 33, but if he does well and his overall doesn't drop too much, maybe we bring him back next season on a cheaper deal, perhaps as a backup or something like that. Next up, we have our backup point guard, Emmanuel Mudiay, 73 overall, 24 years old. He is on a minimum contract, so I'm really, this is a really good deal for us. He's not super high rated, but he's not taking up a lot of our cap, so it does not really matter. But, I've used him a bit, and I'll be honest, he plays a little bit better than a 73 on occasion. He's not as consistent as you would need for a starting point guard. But I do think that he's a serviceable backup for us, at least for this season. And, we can always make a trade further down the line or perhaps look at free agency. But I'm actually okay with Emmanuel Mudiay as our backup point guard this season. Next up, we have Nigel Williams-Goss. And look at his stats here. And you can see he's a pretty solid shooter. He can actually play perimeter defense. His playmaking's at a B+. So he's really not bad, but at 26 years old, 69 overall, I just don't think he really has a future here. He would take a little bit too much time, too many resources to develop at this point. So yeah, I don't really see him sticking around for much longer. Next up, we have the man himself, Donovan Mitchell, 88 overall, and I mean, just look at his stats. Inside, mid, three-point. The guy has a strap. I mean, plain and simple, he's got a strap. He can shoot from anywhere. His perimeter defense is amazing. His playmaking ability is amazing. His physicals, his IQ, his potential. I mean, you don't just find players like this every day. So now there is one potentially big issue with him, and that's the fact that he's only got 1 year left on his deal. There's no team option, there's no player option, so realistically he could leave at the end of this season. And if he does that, I mean, that's gonna make this MyLeague series significantly harder. Like I said, you don't just find players like him too often, and so I'm hoping that we can stay competitive enough this season that he'll want to stay on and commit long term to this project, and we can really just kind of build the team around him. Jordan Clarkson is our next player here, and I actually really like Jordan Clarkson. I think he's a natural scorer, maybe not as consistent as you would want, and that's why he's a backup at this point in his career. But again, him coming off the bench is going to be huge. He's really going to be our sixth man this year. When he's on the court, like, he's looking for points. That's what he's out there to do. He's not out there to really do much else. He can play a little bit of perimeter defense, but realistically, like, he's out there to come off the bench and score us points. Now, when you look at his contract, he does only have a 1-year deal left for 13 mil. Some people might think that's a little bit expensive for a Jordan Clarkson, but honestly, don't mind paying that. Again, we're a small market team, so there's going to be times where we have to overpay, certain players in order to get them to come here. And I don't really mind paying Jordan Clarkson $13 million this year. And who knows, if he does well enough, and we do well enough, maybe he'll want to come back next season and provide us with some really good depth. I think he's going to be really, really good for us this season. Moving on, we're looking at Oni, and I apologize if I butchered that. But 69 overall, 23 years old, and you can see he's actually trending up. So that's a good sign. He's got 2 years on his deal, only 3.3 mil, so really not significant. And when you look at his abilities, he actually can shoot. He's not a bad shooter. He can even, you can see here, play some perimeter defense. That's definitely something that we could work on and build with a C+. His playmaking, not much there, but again, like a C- for a late round second pick is really not that bad. That's something that we might be able to build on, and his potential is a B+. So he might be someone that we look to send to the G League and just kind of see if there's anything there. Again, he's trending upwards, so I think he deserves an opportunity to kind of show us what he can do. Is it going to be here or in the G League? I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll make that decision when it comes down to it. Now we have Rajon Tucker, undrafted out of a small school. But you look at his abilities here, and he's actually a slightly better shooter than Oni, minus the defense, and his potential is a little bit lower. So I think Oni has the higher upside, but I think what we should honestly do is maybe throw some of these more unknown guys into the practice mode and just feel them out and see who we think has the better potential and who we think is going to play better for us. And maybe whoever does worse, we'll send them to the G League, and maybe they'll do a little bit better. Again, we'll just have to make that decision when it comes down to it. The next player up is Royce O'Neal, and at 74 overall, I think there are times where he plays a lot better than a 74. You can see that he does have the ability to shoot a three, and his defense is really, really good. And to be honest, I'm more interested in his defensive abilities. There are a couple issues, a couple concerns, I guess you could say, with him. Number one, he's 6'4", so at small forward, he's going to be a little bit undersized. We might have to use him more as a shooting guard, but we'll see what happens. I do think that against certain shooting or small forwards, I should say, that he'll be able to hold his own with his defensive skills. The second thing is his offensive consistency. It's not there, even though you see that A- in the 3-point scoring. This is a guy that averaged like 6 points a game last year, and I think the year before that it was like 5 points a game. So he's really not he's not someone that we can count on to score. And that leads me into my third issue with him. You look at his contract, right? 4 years, almost $30 million. Now, defense wins championships, but I don't think that Royce O'Neal is worth $8-9 million a year, and so because of that, I think that he is someone that we will probably look to offload at some point. I mean, again, if he plays really well and is helping us win games, then I certainly don't mind him sticking around. But I think heading into year 2, when that $8 million, almost $9 million kicks in, I think we're going to be looking at that and maybe thinking we should move him someplace else. But again, we'll see where it goes. Next up is Niang, and I'm gonna be totally honest. I've used him in the past in like 2K20, and man, I was so horrible with him. Like I couldn't do anything. You can see his abilities here. His inside scoring, mid, 3 points, it's all solid. His A, I mean 3 points to A, so you really can't get much better than that. But I feel like he doesn't play like that. Like I don't. Maybe it's just me. I'll definitely be giving him another chance, but I'm not too high on him. At 73 overall, 27 years old. I don't think he's going to get significantly better at this stage. You know, he kind of is what he is. That stretch 4 role, and hopefully he plays it well. But if not, this is definitely a position that we'll look to upgrade as fast as possible. You know, maybe add a little bit of depth via a trade or something. We're just gonna have to kind of feel him out, give him a chance. I want to give him a fair chance. I don't want to just offload him. And also the fact that he only has a 1-year deal at 1.78 mil. Like, we're really not. What are we gonna get back? You know what I mean? Like, ratings wise, it's not like he has a giant contract, and so we'll have to take on a big contract as well. And some of those players end up being pretty decent, but that's not really going to be the case here. We would really have to get lucky to find a player that we really like that would work in that trade situation. So again, you know, like a lot of these players, we're going to wait and see how he does and then make a decision based off of that. Juwan Morgan is the next player that we're looking at. 69 overall, 23 years old. He was undrafted out of Indiana. And, you know, when I look at his stats, like, nothing really jumps out to me. Like, he's not a really good shooter. He's not a really good defensive player. His potential is only a B. So, you know, it might be, again, with the whole G League thing, like, maybe we send him there and he ends up killing it. And at the very least would be, like, an attractive trading piece for us moving forward. But I don't really see anything in Juwan Morgan that makes me think he's someone worth developing. That could change. Again, we're gonna throw these guys into practice mode at some point and feel them out, and if it feels like, you know, he could do something for us, we might throw him in a game or two and just see how he pans out. Now it's time to take a look at the centers on the team, and first up, obviously Rudy Gobert. And I mean, like I said earlier, man, I really do believe that defense wins championships, and we're looking at one of the best defenders in the NBA today in Rudy Gobert. Now, he can score. He's not a super consistent scorer, so, you know, sometimes I feel like that B+ is a little deceiving. He does not really have a mid-range game, and he doesn't have a three-point game, unfortunately, like a lot of big guys have. But I think he more than makes up with it in terms of defense. I mean, he could even play perimeter defense on occasion. His rebounding is amazing. His IQ is amazing. I mean, he's definitely someone that we want to keep around. And much like the Donovan Mitchell situation, you can see there, he actually only has 1 year left. There's no option. And so he's another player that we're going to have to try to convince to stay on the project. I would rather lose him than Mitchell. I mean, obviously he's 28 years old, so he's starting to get up there in age, but I really do think that he's in the prime of his career, and So hopefully he'll want to stick around for a couple of years and help us win a championship here in Utah. Tony Bradley is the next player up on our list. 22 years old, 75 overall. He's got an okay inside game, nothing special in the mid either. He does play some pretty solid inside defense though, and his rebounding is really good. Potential at a B+. My only thing with Tony Bradley, again, I have not used him in 2K21 yet, but in 2K20 I used him a bit, and he just felt so slow and clunky, and was really, despite that inside defense score that you see at B-, he just felt like a liability because players were just blowing past him right to the basket. And so I'm a little afraid that the same thing's going to happen. And when you look at his offensive abilities, it's not going to ever be enough to make up for poor defense. So we're going to give him a chance, but if the same thing is happening, if we see that defensively he's a liability, then we will look to move him on. At 22 years old, 75 overall, there's definitely some teams that are going to be interested in taking him on, and so maybe we can use him as an option to land a really good player in here via trade sometime this season, because you see there, 1-year deal, no option either. So if we're going to move him on, it's going to be best to do it this season. Last but not least, we're looking at Ed Davis here. He can play center, power forward. Now, he is 31, only 72 overall, but I'm going to tell you, in my experience in using Ed Davis last year, he actually played a lot better than his rating. I think he was maybe like a 74, but I'm telling you right now, like, he actually played really well, especially defensively for some reason. You see here, like, he's not really anything special defensively, but he played really well. So his rebounding is really good. That's the thing, like, we have really good rebounders here, and he adds to that. And the fact that he can also play power forward is going to really help him, because I think in terms of talent, we don't have much depth, especially at power forward. So he will definitely see some minutes there at some point, and I'm hoping that he plays as well as he did for us last season too. Now, at 31, he's not likely going to be here next season. I think we're going to go with someone a little bit younger, but I'm definitely going to enjoy using Ed Davis this year. I think he deserves a fair shot to just kind of see what he can do for us. So there you have it, guys. That's kind of my general views on the roster and some of our plans moving forward. Now, if you have any advice on certain players that maybe we should go for, or perhaps maybe you used Tony Bradley last year in a different way that I did, and he was actually a beast for you, comment down below and let me know how you used him in your game plan. Maybe that's something that I can implement, and he'll end up being a lot better. Who knows? And as always, if you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and click like and subscribe. It's the only way to let me know that you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one.